So I started the concept of this song before my first semester ended in college. So for context, I'm a freshman studying accounting and bro, juggling through the music stuff and the college stuff is not easy at all. Even like the first month, I burnt out almost every week and spent most of my time playing video games or something else, right? I would look at my channel, see how small the feedback was, and I would wonder if I should even continue doing it again and again and again. And as much as I appreciated the people who stuck by, there was always a part of me that wanted more. Like I felt the effort just wasn't worth it for how little reception I got. So let's fast forward now, December 2025. The first semester was almost over, and I found out Radiohead's Letdown. I learned the backstory, and without thought, I was just creating the guitars and the initial melody thereafter. Looking back, I was very burnt out at this time, and for hours I was stuck on how I would approach this. This was the first time I was creating this type of genre and style, and I was still stressed out over my final exams. So I don't really remember how I created the melody, but I recall just looking up at the ceiling, pondering, and then randomly plucking the strings, and then bang.
Now I remember when I wrote Billie Jean, I was riding in my car down Ventura Boulevard. All I said to myself beforehand, I want to write a song with a great bass hook, and and I just let it go really. And then several days later, the whole
Where did that come
from above.
That interview from Michael Jackson stuck out with me for a very, very long time. I always wondered how he would make his songs, and then he would say, from above or something like that. And I just think that there has to be something more than from above. But at that moment, when everything just clicked into place, it was like the first time something washed over me, and then things just sort of happened. I had thought that it might be the culmination of what I had felt at the moment, the songs that I had made and listened to, and it just turned into this melody that laid out to me as if something placed my thoughts into this music that I was creating. It was a very weird feeling.
See, the thing is, artists seem to get in the way of the music. Get out of the way of the music. Don't write the music. Let the music write itself.
So let's not waste any more time now. In creating this song, it was a very messy process. I had so many melodies in my head, and I was stubborn to cut some ideas down. So just the guitar alone had already 4 different melodies stacked on top of each other. At this point, even my mind was already hallucinating random stuff, thanks to me being both sleep deprived and listening to segments of this instrumental for hours at a time. And I don't mean that figuratively. I legitimately spent hours fixated on very short sections of the song because I thought there was something missing or there was a part that didn't work. I'd probably spend like 10 to 20 minutes patching up one instrument, and then after a while, I'd return to it and change it again and again and again and again. And it's like old habits don't die and something like that. There is a bunch of sounds here that are not at all audible when everything is, clashing together. And part of why I kept it in was because once I heard a section far too long, I would begin to hear these harmonies, these overtones that I thought were pronounced and sounded good. So I would try and find some kind of synth that replicated the sound that was, stirring in my head. And I just kept it in, even if I never really hear it anymore, or if it's like very subtle. So roughly an entire month of doing this back and forth, of listening to small segments, making small changes, the instrumentals were now finally complete. So it's not perfect, but it was enough for me to say I'm not going to be looking back at it and change things again and again and again. And so I let the moment sink in and then quickly realize how draining doing everything on your own was. So at that point, I was already dreading the lyrics and figuring out all of the melody for this vocal. And I was already too tired for doing that. I just wanted to get this thing out there, So I think I finished the lyrics in about a week, Whenever I would go out with my family for groceries or fetch errands or just go on vacation, I would try and find a window of time where I had to wait or do nothing. And then by that period, I would just figure out the lyrics in my head and then I would just write it down on my phone. So may it be on public transport, waiting for my mom to arrive, or waiting for service after ordering food. So by that point, it was now Christmas break, and I had a lot of time to reflect. But really, this was my darkest period from the entire year. My mind was always drifting to this disappointment and regret. And I felt like 2025 was a complete blur. And I had wasted the entire year without having much progress. And I felt like I severely underestimated how balancing college and music was, and I overestimated my body, which led to a more sedentary life filled with tons and tons of burnout, which is a complete contrast to my once optimistic vision and assiduousness. To think that the start of 2025, I was on the road of this self help, personal development bullcrap. And then by the time 2026 rolled around, I was contemplating how stupid and pathetic my life was. It's kind of funny to look back on, but it also makes a lot of sense how quickly I pieced the lyrics together. To bring more context into the lyrics, throughout a lot of the struggle I had from balancing college, music, and a bunch of other personal stuff, I always wondered if I was in limbo, exerting effort but never really going anywhere. Almost like I was stuck to where I was no matter how much I had developed unconsciously. And so I became spiteful, sensitive to these small setbacks, and felt alone most of the time since I isolated myself to work on the music. All of the jumbled mess began to translate on my relationships. In a way, this song was sort of a plea, something to bring me comfort, much like how a mom would comfort their child with her lullabies. And so in the lyrics, mom is the most recurrent word, and I deliberately added that in multiple sections. And progressively, the lyrics began to reveal that as much as we put up a front of being competent, of being smart and capable, it might carry with it a burden that requires some kind of warmth. So that's a little deep talk. It's kind of cringe to say it in front of y'all, but whatever. So enough about the sappy lyrics. I feel like we gotta get into the nitty bitty, the most annoying part of doing this, and that was the mixing and mastering. It took me yet another 2 months before I finished the entire song. I mixed this song 3 separate times. The first two I was not happy about. And I kept listening to it on my phone, on the speaker, on my headphones, and I just hated how there was something super loud on certain parts and then unintelligible on the others. So I just kept fixing and fixing, and it turned from hours to days to weeks to literal months before I was okay with the entire mix. And I specifically remembered getting absolutely agitated when I finished the mixing and then I would have to master it now. And this entire process was the sole reason I even considered saying goodbye to this thing. No matter how much I had done it, the fact that every single time I just fixed something, it turned into this sloppy, amateur, stupid mess that was so disappointing. There were points that I thought Hobo Johnson was better than whatever I was making. Truly, there were times where I would wear my headphones and just dread doing this. I'd go open up FL Studio. Then the playlist would just be in the background staring at me. And then I'd stare back. But it's kind of like looking at the sun, It's just, ah! And so what I do most of the time is just lay in bed, take a nap. I'll tell myself I'll just relax for a while. And then I'll come back. But I never did. And so I'd wake up and then the sun would already come down. So that was my process up until March. There were tons of moments where I delayed the entire project and spent more time procrastinating than actually finishing it. And a lot happened between this period. Burnout, tons of burnout, personal drama, and even the loss of my grandma. So I stretched it out for long as I could. And I wondered if it's even worth it at this point. I had a pretty bad negativity bias. And honestly, I was just getting sick of opening the same project, doing the same thing with the same effort, and still not being content or satisfied with what I had changed. And that's why I wanted to bring up Radiohead and Let Down at the start of the video. Besides them holding a special place in my heart as a musician, they also very astutely reveal the problems with music and my confidence as an artist. I also struggled a lot with not comparing myself to others. It's easier to say, but opening up YouTube or Spotify and then listening to tons of music reminds me just how bad I am, just how far I am to reach them. But I forgot the fact that I had made this song all on my own, clawed my way to make it work, and exerted a lot of effort, more than I had for my entire lifetime. And Let Down was a song that should have never been included in their album, yet they kept it. And to think that this song is regarded as the heart of the album is so ironic. In a different timeline, I'd imagine if it were dropped, would we ever really have a song that resonated with a lot of people and helped them cope through their struggles? I had to remind myself that the best answers may require a path that we don't like. And sometimes things are already good enough. And it might be a great time to rest and appreciate what we have done given the circumstance. I can't keep working on this song for another 3 months expecting it to get any better. And I probably won't learn how to create better music through one song alone. And I can't be a hypocrite and forget the notion that music must be fun and not a hassle to make. So clearly I had fallen on that path, but I'm also glad to notice it through a band that I originally hadn't paid much attention to. Well, eventually, through my friends' urgency, I finally accepted the song for what it is. Sure, it's imperfect and far from the expectations I had, and I really wanted to master and mix this a lot better. But I felt like if I kept on, trying and trying, I'll slowly lose the character of this song. And I wouldn't really imagine it to sound as authentic as it is without those elements. By this point, I was already tired from college and with the song, so I just created the album cover haphazardly. And then by the time I released the song, I was also tired of promoting it even further. It's whatever, but I'm just super glad it's over with, and I'm very proud of myself for even finishing this crazy of a project. If you're still here, I really am grateful that you are still watching this till the end. This is a format that is pretty much the same with my honestly, it's not that hard videos, and I promise I'll try and make more stuff regarding that. I decided to use the same style since it's all I really know. And I do genuinely enjoy writing the scripts, editing it, and just making them in general. So I really want to have your guys' feedback on what do you think about this video, the format, and whether you guys want a full breakdown of the song from beginning to end. Till then, I feel like it's a great time shamelessly plugging this. Check out all my other stuff on YouTube and the song I'm talking about here on this video. It's available on Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube Music, anywhere, okay? Just go into the description, click the hyperfollow link, okay? I appreciate any support, however small it may be. I don't even know if this video is gonna even get 100 views, but I appreciate you nonetheless. Badoom!